Welcome back to On the Light. In today's episode, Prashantji continues the discussion on practice, where he tells us that practice is not something that should be belittled. It is necessary in our formative periods of our education. He says that any effort to steady the citta is abhyasa. Then he goes on to explain sadhana and the importance of Satsangha. Please enjoy this very educational episode of On the Light. Hello, sir.
Hello.
How are you?
I am fine.
Last time we talked, you discussed practice.
Yeah.
And one of the things you said is that practice is required in the formative period of learning. And you talked at the end about it's required to transfigure the I-ness.
Oh, yeah.
I think you said at the end that you wanted to start to get into the topic of sadhana and the difference between abhyasa and sadhana.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sadhana will have no word in any other language because in our ethos, we believe that our life, our existence doesn't start with taking a birth and existence doesn't end with having a death. We are eternally existing from time immemorial, time without beginning. We have been existing in some form or the other. Now, this cultural background is not there for other languages. And that's the limitation of English or any other language, that it will not find parallel to many of the terms which the Indian thought system, philosophical system speaks about. So sadhana is sadhana. It cannot be rendered into in any other language. The practice is a worldly endeavor. Who does practice? The subjective entity. I practice. You practice. They practice. I want to practice. You want to practice. They want to practice. So it is in the empirical framework, the concept of practice comes in. I won't practice what I don't want. I won't practice what I don't like. I won't practice when I say that there is no advantage for me. So is the case of anyone in the world. So that's practice is a very worldly term in English. So it believes that phenomenal world is real, our phenomenal existence is real, and therefore we have latency after this existence. So we do nothing. If you recall, I said sometimes, I don't know whether in last session or one of the classes, do we do anything for previous lives in our yoga? Do we do anything for future life in our yoga? We want to do yoga that is good now, here. So therefore, it is a worldly subject on which we all embark upon, unless there is a child prodigy. But we commoners, we are not child prodigy in yoga. So therefore, we will have mundane gravity is working. So therefore, I want to practice. I need practice. Practice is good for me. So we will take this view and then we will decide to practice. And this is what happens in a formative period, that we want to practice. I want to practice. You want to practice. And I should be practicing. You should be practicing. They should be practicing. It's perfectly right. It cannot be looked down upon. It cannot be deprecated. It cannot be belittled. So practice is not something that we in philosophical realm set it aside. It is needed. And Therefore, the formative periods, I must have the intent to practice. I must have desire to practice. I must have motivation to practice. I must have some advantage in practice. I must be seeker. I must be seeking some advantage for my present life. We never practice for our next life. We never practice for our previous lives. There is no way, and it is not needed in mundane activity, in worldly activity. We don't need to anything to do for our previous lives. We don't need to do anything for our prospective lives. We'll consider this life as reality from birth to death. And therefore, anything is good between the birth and death. It may not be good today, but it is good for this life. So that's the materialistic uh, gravity. And we are all in the gravity, material gravity. We mortals are in material gravity, therefore, we cannot escape. So, practice is not something to be belittled. Um, so, you might be a raw beginner, you will practice. You might be proficient in your own view, or you might be proficient in the view of the world. The whole world might think that you are proficient, or you might think you are proficient, yet we only do practice. So whether you are a junior person or a senior person, a beginner or one who is doing for decades and decades and decades, yet we don't cross the boundaries of practice. So if you are a practitioner of 40, 50 years, you have to practice. If somebody is a beginner, has to practice. Somebody is raw beginner, has to practice. Somebody is a relatively beginner, has to practice. We don't have any scheme at all beyond the practice. Now, what is this practice? Practice is to do something repeatedly. This is the literal meaning of practice. That we must do it on and on and on. I can't say I am practicing this only for today and I'm not going to practice next day or tomorrow. The practice implies that it is a repetition. So we'll have to repeat our Trikonasana umpteen number of times every day, more frequently, often and often. We'll have to repeat our Shirshasans. It can't be just done once and then it is not a practice. A practice implies that it has to be repeatedly done. So that is in Sanskrit, it is called avartanam, punaravartanam. It must be repeated. Now, how many times you have done Shirshasana so far? Tell me. You have lost the count? I have lost the count.
Yeah.
That means we have been doing it repeatedly on and on and on and on. That's the meaning of practice. That's the literal meaning of the practice. That's the overt meaning of the practice. That's the obvious meaning of the practice that we repeat. So when we learn something new, we need to practice. We have to repeatedly do. Suppose you get Kapodasan today, you will do Kapodasan without relenting for next few weeks and maybe more than weeks, maybe more than a month, so that you should not lose it. You just don't say, I got Kapodasan today, now let me go to another asana. So you'll have to practice it. You'll have to practice it in order to polish it. Develop whatever qualities such as the grace, ease, comfort, and what you call as control. So that you can do your Kapodasan anytime that you think of doing it. But suppose you get Kapodasan today and you don't practice for weeks and weeks and weeks, you are not sure of getting it. You know what happens if you don't practice. Within a day or two, you know what happens to your asanas. So you will have depreciation significantly. And in order that there is no depreciation in the postures, we want to see that we practice regularly, daily, often, etc., etc. So practice means to do something repeatedly. That is the literal meaning of practice. For practice, the word in Sanskrit generally abhyas. Abhyas is a word which can be equated with practice, but abhyasa is also a larger concept. It is not equal to practice, but practice is abhyas. Abhyas is to practice. So we must do that abhyas day after day after day, week after week after week, for several reasons that we have to uh, evolve it, we have to polish it, we have to develop the necessary ease and grace, etc. And in order that we don't lose it, because if you don't do that practice or abhyasa, you don't do it for 8, 10, 15 days, you know what happens. Even 2, 3 days you take a break, you know what happens when you start your practice. You might be fresh, but then in postures, you see that there is a lot of depreciation because of your neglect for a couple of days, or for justifiable reason you have not practiced. You have some commitment, therefore you could not practice. So you don't blame that. You have commitments and therefore you could not practice. But yet you will see depreciation in the physical aspects of postures. So abhyas is can be equated to the word practice, but abhyasa is greater than practice. In mathematics, you get the equations equal to A equal to B, A greater than B, B greater than A. So there are marks to signify something is greater, something is inferior, etc., lesser. So abhyas is a wider term. So literally, abhyas means to do on and on and on, and this is a virtue. It should not be blamed. That practice in the sense of abhyas, in the sense of repeat or repeating, is definitely virtue, and it should be praiseworthy. It should not be looked down upon. Somebody is doing practice, somebody is doing abhyas. There is nothing to blame. It should be, there should be accolades for a person who is doing abhyas regularly. So that's the literal meaning of abhyas. But in yoga, Patanjali has given a technical meaning of abhyas. Tatra sthito yatnaha abhyasaha. In the first chapter, he describes abhyas, vairagyabhyam, talnirodha. So he describes abhyasa. Now that is not just repeating. That is not the major meaning. That you repeat your practices, moral practices, ethical practices, physical practices, mental practices, whatever practices you count as yogic practices, it doesn't mean only repeating. There's a technical meaning which he defines. Tatra sthito yatnaha. Any effort to be steady, the chitta is abhyas, not mind. You can be steady the mind by taking certain other measures. Suppose you are worked up in the house, you will stir out of the house. Suppose you are worked up in the office place, you will leave the office place. So it's not referring to mind. Chitta is a wider concept. So students of yoga should not equate chitta with mind. So he speaks about abhyasa, effort to be steady the chitta and not be steady the mind. Be calm the chitta and not be calm the mind. Chitta is a wider concept. So that's how in formal pursuit and education, we have to understand this difference between mind and chitta. So he says, any effort to be steady in the chitta is abhyas. Now, suppose you are worked up and you are having lots of anxieties and under the radiation of stress and anxieties, etc. Now you are listening to me. You are listening to me. Now, if it is making you calmer, whiter, at a deeper plane of mind or in the oceanic depth of the mind, then it is abhyas. So you can listen to noble thoughts. Satsanga is also effort to abhyas. Now, our time people don't think that satsanga is a part of yoga. They will say only I should do abhyas in my asanas. I should be steady my chitta. In pranayam, I should be steady my chitta. No, there are so many other endeavors and efforts. Simplify your life, your mind will become quieter. If you make your life complicated, the mind will be not quieter. So when I say mind, I am referring to citta as well. That is a little deeper mind rather than peripheral mind. Like you say, I am contented. What is that contentment? Where is it? When you say it is contentment of my heart, what does it mean? That is, it's the deeper plane of the mind that you are contented. I am contented at my heart, in my heart, is different than I am contented. I am contented is a peripheral mind, reference to peripheral mind. But then in figuratively, when you say, I got the contentment of my heart, it is definitely deeper depth of the mind. A mind has immeasurable, unfathomable depth. Like, it is deeper than ocean, which I have often said in my talks. We think ocean is the deepest thing on the planet, but the mind is deeper than ocean. Anyway, technical meaning is to any effort to be steady the mind, ennoble your life, simplify your life, philosophize your life, turn down the ego function, ego role, ego influence on your life, you will get the quiet.
May I ask something?
Yes.
I think I had some confusion because potentially places the term abhyasa, we first hear about it in Samadhi Pada. And
Yeah.
so I thought that when he introduces abhyasa and vairagya, that was to attain samadhi, but it's can be referenced to even
Yeah.
yeah,
On a
okay.
lower rung, but
Yeah.
quintessentially, that is the meaning
Okay.
that your chitta should be any effort to quieten the mind. So that's why I said, make your life simple, make your life noble,
Mhm.
make your life transcending the I-ness and ego and petty ego, make your mind magnanimous.
Mhm.
A person, when he has a magnanimous mind, doesn't say, I am worked up or I am in turmoil. But when you have petty desires, personal desires, and petty motivations, then naturally it makes on life complicated, and therefore there will be turmoil and there will be chaos, and mind will not be settling to a quiet condition. So there are so many ways to make your chitta quieter and quieter and quieter, and
Mhm.
all those measures taken are counted in abhyas of first chapter. So that comes in a higher hierarchy level. In lower hierarchy level, that essence doesn't change, but then we'll be doing any effort on a lower plane. But it will be same quintessentially that the the whole of the mind stuff should be quietened, steadied, be calmed. That is abhyasa. So we are not pursuing samadhi. That doesn't mean that we don't have to go for steadiness of the chitta. Even
Mhm.
for our practice at our level, our chitta should be steadied, or our whole mind stuff should be steadied. It cannot be having a vibrator in the mind and then do your asanas and pranayam.
Right.
So it has to be steadied. So that's the technical meaning of abhyas, which we have to take cognizance of in being students of Patanjali's yoga. One is to repeat our effort. So in the beginning, you may not be looking for quietening the mind. When you are learning Kapotasana, you are not quietening the mind. You are getting a posture. When you are learning Vrishchikasana, you are not quietening the mind. You are learning the movement. You are learning the posture. But then it has to be repeatedly done. So that is general meaning or literal meaning of abhyasa is to repeat. The essential aspect is not peeping in. When you get your first kapotasana, you don't try to make your mind quiet and serene when you take second effort of your kapotasana. You want to polish it, you want to refine it, you want to gain some control over it. You want to gain some mastery over kapotasana so that you will get as and when you want to get it. So repeat abhyasa has also that meaning that it is a repeated endeavor. In case essential aspect of the abhyas concept is not there. But when it is yoga, that should be on the horizon. At some stage, I got Kapotasana, I got Vrishchikasana, I got Viprit Chakrasana. I must also have this on the horizon, that I have to see that the mind is not become turbulent, not becoming vibrant, but the mind is quietened. The mind stuff is quietened. The deeper mind is quietened. This has to be attained. So in yoga, we make two endeavors. Elsewhere, you will just try to master your effort that you can do anywhere, anytime. Like if you are playing violin, you just want to practice on a piece, an exercise or whatever piece or composition to refine it. So a good tonal quality, good skill, no what you call lack of musicality, no jarring sound. And so that's how you try to do your practice. For that sake, you don't try to do practice for your quietness of the mind. So let me at this instance tell you here, the music that we have today is performing art. But it is a performing art. Our music is not necessarily performing art. It has become performing art today. The artist is not going to transcend in his mind state by performing a concert, while the audience will be transcending in the state of mind. The art performing artist will be engaged in gimmicks, crescendo, so that usually applauded at the end of the concert. So he doesn't transcend in his mind and consciousness. But the auditors, the audience will definitely get elation in the mind. So mind state of audience in a music concert is 10 times better than the mind state of an artist. Artist will not climb up, but the audience will climb up in a music concert in their consciousness. So it will become more sublime, more noble, it will become more pure and more sattvic, more dispassionate. So more suppressing the shadripus. So therefore they transcend kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsaryam. While an artist is a performing artist, he will actually, he's descending. He is descending in his consciousness because he's trying to impress the people.
I often wondered about that, listening to music, because I have felt, I love music. I know you also love music. Sometimes when I'm really listening to something and I become totally engrossed in it, it feels like it could almost be given, I can't remember the Sanskrit word, but one of the mind polishers, to still the movements of consciousness, to quiet the mind. So it's interesting to hear you say that.
Yeah, because today music has been performing art for the West.
Hmm.
It is not for evolving individual. Personal evolvement is not at all in the agenda. It is to become popular. It is to become appreciated by the world,
Hmm.
applauded by the world. Anecdotes coming from the world, accolades coming from the world, incomings and accolades should come. Press should praise, people should praise, audience should praise, and the artist is looking for upgrading his social standard. He wants to climb up in his status and social standard. So while Indian music, classical Indian music, doesn't have that, it
Right.
has this performing dimension to it. So today's musicians are all performing artists. They don't evolve their life. Therefore, the musicians say, don't peep into our personal life.
Hmm.
They don't like somebody peeping into the personal life. They say that's personal life. They want people to only appreciate his skill, proficiency in his art. Anyway, so uh, incidentally, that my point came, so we delineated on it. Now let's come back to our topic.
Okay.
So, abhyas has two meanings. One is to repeat, and this is good for us, you and me, who are neophytes. In the formative periods, we have to struggle. We have to put efforts. We have to put extra efforts. We have to perspire. And even many times, every session, we perspire and expire and again start tomorrow. So that is required in beginning stage, or particularly when it is asana. If it is taken as postures, you will have to work hard. You will have to work with discipline. You will have to work with relentlessly. You have to work with determination. So these are all masculine qualities. Determination will not evolve you in your consciousness. Determination will only evolve you in your output, which can be received by people, which can be assessed by the people. They will say, yes, now you are doing better than what you did, etc., etc. So, abhyas, in any sense of the term, either of the senses of the term should be understood in true perspective, right perspective. So, abhyas means again it is worldly. I want to get my mind elated. I want the mind psyche to evolve, etc., etc. So again, there is a worldly component. So this is going to be there for all of us. But then, when it comes to sadhana, usually people think that somebody has done rigorous sadhana, and therefore he is exemplary. The person has excelled. Like people believe that Guruji excelled because he did rigorous sadhana. So what is sadhana? Tell me. What are you going to say about? So sadhana is not to be done with a greater dedication, greater religiosity, greater magnanimity, or greater nobility. Sadhana, for popular people, sadhana is done. Now, I have many times told you in the classes, asanas are not done, asanas happen. Yoga is not done, yoga happens. Now, that is more essential condition, that yoga happens. Asanas happen, pranayam happens. So similarly, sadhana is something which actually happens. It is not done. Because if you are doing, the pronoun I is a center principle. It's a centric principle. The pronoun I, subjective entity, the I, the me, is a very centric principle when, if I embark upon a concept like doing sadhana. Like I want to do practice, then I will say I want to do sadhana. And therefore, that it is not essential sadhana. Now, another important thing to be taken note of here is that sadhana doesn't come everywhere. Say you're Western musicians, Western artists. They might be number one in the world. They might be all-time number one in the world. Yet they don't need sadhana. They don't do sadhana. They cannot do sadhana. They don't need sadhana. They are not doing sadhana. Like someone like Michelangelo might be all-time great. Someone like Yehudi Menuhin might be all-time great. But there is no sadhana. Because the sadhana is done for material world, mundane world, ephemeral world, that I am existing between my birth and death. So everywhere sadhana is not required. And therefore, this word is not there in any other language. It cannot come in any other language. Then where does the sadhana come? Sadhana comes only in spiritual realm, not professional realm, not any worldly realm. Sadhana doesn't come there. The person might be excelling. The person might be all-time great or our-time great, yet there is no need of sadhana. Sadhana considers that you are eternal being And therefore, you are doing something for your existence prior to your birth and posterior to death. Now, that is not required in professions such as music. No musicians tries to do something to be a better musician next life. Musician wants to be the better musician in this life. No musician wants to improve his musicianship, if at all what is there, it was there of previous life. Now we all endorse that Yehudi Menuhin was a child prodigy. At the age of 3 or 4, he wielded the instrument, the violin, and he played violin. Now a child of 3 or 4 years of age cannot be playing violin. He did. So he was acclaimed as a child prodigy. But even then, when he was a child prodigy, none of his violin playing was to do something, some correction. That means he played his violin in the previous incarnations. Why will some become child prodigy? That means the previous life he played violin, or he was in music, or previous couple of lives he was in music, or he was playing some instrument, if not violin. Violin may not be existing at all, but he was a musician. But nothing is done to do any reconciliation, correction, reformation for what we might have done in previous life. Now, none of us have idea of what we did in previous life. We don't have to have idea what did I do in my last life. What did I do in my previous lives? We don't need to have any statement with regards to that, any record with regards to that this is what I did in my last life, previous lives. We don't need. We have been existing. That means we have done something. That is the aspect of karma management. So in karma management, we consider whatever we have done in our previous lives, that is corrected by philosophy of yoga, conduct of life in yoga. You do not know what blunders, mistakes you made, yet you will circumscribe them in your practice of the present life, and you will reform there as well. You will not know where have you reformed, but you will have touched those previous karmas, which are going to later see. Yet you will do something. That's why it is called karma management. The point is, it should be spiritual endeavor, adhyatmic endeavor. Otherwise, you don't need sadhana. You might be greatest administrator, you might be greatest musician, you might be greatest mathematician, you might be greatest engineer, you might be greatest scientist of that particular time, or maybe all time. Somebody might be all-time great scientist, somebody might be all-time great administrator, but that is not spiritual. So sadhana only comes in spiritual endeavor. Therefore, Patanjali has given the second chapter called Sadhana Pada, where he is introducing the means. I have made it clear in the book, it is not Sadhana Pada, it is not a chapter on practices. It is practices on means. And we have been taking recourse to means in all our previous existences, and we will be taking recourse to means in our posterior existences. So yoga considers those means. So it should be spiritual endeavor, more precisely an adhyatmic endeavor. So sadhana comes in particular domains in our culture. Any professional act, nobody does sadhana. A carpenter, a mason, a fabricator, they don't have to do sadhana because that is not a spiritual endeavor. That's a professional endeavor. So it's particular trait and predilection that they have developed. Therefore, a mason is a good mason, carpenter is a good carpenter. maybe renowned carpenter, maybe the exceptional carpenter, etc., etc. Everywhere you don't need sadhana. If you are in carpentry, you don't need sadhana. If you are in any other such vocation or profession, you don't need sadhana. If you are a chartered accountant, you don't need sadhana. If you are an attorney, you don't need sadhana. If you are an administrator, you don't need sadhana. Because those are all totally worldly realms, material realms. But our existence uh, goes beyond materialism. And therefore, it is only sadhana comes in dharma sadhana, jnana sadhana, moksha sadhana, mantra sadhana, dharma sadhana. So all these are going to work for your eternal existence. It is not for lifetime achievements that you will embark upon all these. So basically, you must be convinced that you are not ephemeral, you are not a bubble which lasts for 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years and then breaks. You are not a bubble, we are not bubbles. We have eternal existence. And this is a very basic psychodynamics in only spiritual realm. So there are these sadhanas are in jnana sadhana, dharma sadhana, mantra sadhana, yoga sadhana, japa sadhana, moksha sadhana. So these all are spiritual practices, as we call them in English, but they are adhyatmic and paramarthic practices to put it in Sanskrit. Paramarthic, artha means purpose. Paramarthic means beyond the purpose, beyond any imagination. You can't imagine that purpose at all. Supreme purpose is called paramartha. Anything that is not supreme purpose, it is called laukika. So these are all wonderful words in Sanskrit. So there is no room for confusions. Laukika means worldly. Worldly means not only terrestrial. Even celestial are worlds. Infernal are worlds. So we have three worlds as we believe: infernal world, terrestrial world, celestial worlds, but they're all worlds. So the things are worldly. And when they are worldly, you don't require supreme purpose. If you want to be successful human being, you don't have to have supreme purpose in life. You will be a good banker, good businessman, good technician, good scientist, good physicist, good academician, and then you will excel in the world. A good artist, a good craftsman, or whatever. We don't have to have supreme purpose. What is supreme purpose? Moksha, emancipation. So emancipation will only get some value and worth if you realize that present life is a bondage and we are in shackles. Now, we people don't realize that we have shackles and we are shackled. We don't believe that, or we don't get to the realization that we are bound. Most of us will claim, I am free person. I am absolutely free person. I have no bondage. Many of the people in the world will say, but they don't understand there are shackles. So in Satsangha, we are told, what are these shackles? Suppose you take a leap from your legs, you are going to fall down because the gravity will pull you down. Gravity is a shackle. It will pull you down sooner or later. And in case if you don't come down at all, you will be vaporized. So that is not advisable. It is better to come back. If you are terrestrial persons, suppose we take a dart in the space and never come back. It's a self-destruction. So we want to come back. All these astronauts want to come back. They want to have soft landing and not a crash, and not that they don't land at all. So your astronauts go to Mars and celestial spaces, but they want to come back. They do come back. They have intent to come back. There's a gravity. We are bound. We are bound to so many things. Like you say, I have commitments. What are commitments? You say, I have responsibilities. What are responsibilities? They are all shackles in some form or the other. So we are not free from shackles. We are not free from all those chains, bondages. So we are all in bondages, but many of us are so ignorant or perverted that we don't believe that we are bound. We think we are free, and many people in the world will tell you they are very free people. There is no freedom as such. We have human limitations. Suppose my house is locked. I don't have the keys. It is my house, but I cannot enter the door. I cannot enter the house. So I'm waiting at the door and I see an ant coming, and the ant from under the door creeps into the house. Now it is not, it's his house of the ant. Ant easily goes in and out despite the door locked. Now I am the owner of the house. I cannot move in and out when the door is locked. So the ant doesn't have that delimitation, restriction, that house is locked, therefore I cannot enter. Robbers will open your lock and enter your house. But when the house is locked, you can't enter the house. You wait for the keys to arrive and then you enter. So it's your own house. You can't enter. Robbers don't look for who is the owner. The creatures, the insects, and the worms freely have entry exit. Why is it that we are bound? We have a physical dimension. We cannot be creeping from under the door unless you are a yogi. Then you will go for a siddhi called anima, atomization, and then you will enter your house. But we don't have Ashtama Siddhis so that we can be even entering the door or entering even opaque wall, solid wall. We cannot. The wall is putting limitation for me to go beyond the wall. So we have all kinds of limitations because of our physical dimension, because of our body-mind constitution. We have limitations. We have bondage. So to believe that I have no bondage is sheer ignorance, or it is stupidity, or it is perversion. It is not understanding reality. And therefore, moksha concept is there, that liberation means these bondages and shackles are not limiting us. And therefore, this word sadhana doesn't come in other professions, other traits. It is only when it is adhyatmic, paramarthik, and sadhanas such as they are, as I said, jnana sadhana, yoga sadhana, mantra sadhana, dharma sadhana. So they consider our existence, which extends beyond the life and death on either sides. That's what the dharma is. That's what the jnana is. So sadhana is only in the adhyatmic realm, paramarthic realm, not in other realms. Suppose I have excelled as a musician, people naively say that I did a lot of sadhana and therefore I'm top class musician. No, it is not sadhana. Now you should be doing, even when it comes to sadhana, it has to be done, but it doesn't become sadhana unless it is happening. So suppose I do my practice and I call it my sadhana. If I do 8 hours of sadhana, I might get 20 seconds of sadhana happening. As long as my pronoun I, my personal gravities are inflicting, there it is not sadhana. I have to transcend. So the transcendence comes for a short while you are in Shirshasana. or while you are in pranayam, the transcendence will come for a short while. At that time, it becomes sadhana. Sadhana is the, suppose I'm doing 8 hours or 4 hours per day. It doesn't mean 4 hours I am in sadhana, 8 hours I am in sadhana. I might be 60, 70, 80, 100 seconds. Because the happening aspect should be blooming and blossoming. So that ego will be kept at bay, petty ego will be kept at bay, petty individuality will be kept at bay. This is important for something to become sadhana. That only happens when it is a spiritual practice. Now, if you, at some stage, suppose you dream that you must be starting your yoga sadhana. You have been practicing for decades and decades and decades, and at some stage you want to embark upon the, or get onto the track of sadhana. You just can't be proficient in what you practice. Shirshasana, Sarvangasana, Trikonasana, Kapotasana, Ujjayi Pranayam, the Viloma Anuloma Pranayam. You cannot really go into that. To really imbibe and inculcate those values that I am eternal, I am not for a lifetime existence. And lifetime existence is not real. It's a virtual reality. We all believe that our existence is real. It's not real. Now, where will you get to know that? Basically, you will have to embark upon a profound and profuse Satsangha. Sat means truth. Sat means existent. Existent, which is ever existent, never fades in and fades out, never has arrival departures. It's a constant. So that is called Sat. That which doesn't have arrival departures, which doesn't have blooming and budding, blossoming and budding, which doesn't have latency and potential conditions. It is ever existent. That's called Sat. And from that Sat, the word Satya has come. Whereas we have ephemeral truths, that you are Susan Johnson, I am Prashant Iyengar, is an ephemeral truth. Is it a permanent truth? Not at all. But then it's a truth. So this I have discussed in my Yoga Sutra book, the Satya, Yamas, second of the Yamas. What is that Satya? There are two. One is ephemeral, temporary. It's truth. You are Susan, I am Prashant, it's truth. It's not untrue. But if something is not untrue, it doesn't necessarily become truth. Because I am Prashant and you are Susan for this time span. Prior to this life, you were not Susan. I was not Prashant. After this, my lifespan, I'm not going. Not going to be Prashant, and you won't be Susan. So the word Satsangha is important. Now, and the usually popular notion of Satsanga is hear noble things, hear eternal things, hear the things which will transcend you from your worldliness, mundanity. So you think satsang is to just hear something about, read something about, where you forget yourself. Satsanga does, because just for a while ago I said, your previous life is managed. Your subsequent prospective lives are all even managed. They can be managed here, which Patanjali clearly mentions in Karma Siddhanta of the second chapter. Those cluster of 4-5 sutras. Klesha Mula Karma Shaya Drushta Drushya Janma Vedani Yaha. Starting from there are 4-5 sutras on Karma Siddhanta. My book on fundamentals of Patanjali philosophy deals with that topic. So Satsanga does that. So I will just give you a little idea of this Satsanga in today's session. before we end the session today. Say, suppose there is a water body, lake, pond, tank, whatever. Now, if the water of the water body is not disturbed by throwing some pebbles, something falling into it every time, then the water steadies. Water steadies after a while. Now, when in a water body, the water settles because of no ripples, no waves, etc., etc. What will happen to that water body? Heavier dirt particles settle at the basin. Small pebbles, dust particles, they will all settle at the basin of the water body. Okay. What will be surfacing on the top is moss. The moss will collect at the top of the lake. Now, in case if you want to have pure water, you will have to gently, quietly push the moss aside and take water which is underneath the moss. Now, that will be crystal clear. That will be transparent. So when the water body is not disturbed, there are no waves, no ripples, no wind blowing to disturb the surface of the water. Nothing is being dropped. Nothing is being thrown in the water. The water after a while will steady. When it steadies, there are three departments or sections of the water. The heavy, dirty matter settles at the basin of the reservoir, and the lighter aspects will surface as moss. Now, moss is not something that we say it is pure, nor what is at the basin, we say it is pure. It is dirt. So we don't scrape the water of that water body and try to take water from bottom. It will just help you get brown water because the dust is settled at the bottom. Earthen particles have settled at the bottom. The pebbles and stones and what that kind of dirt is settled at the bottom. So you don't scrape to get purer water. Under the moss, you get clearer water. So in Satsanga, what happens? Like a water body has dirt. A water body cannot be absolutely pure. All kinds of dirt reach the water. So by Satsanga, what happens? The lake of consciousness can settle down. And when the lake of consciousness settles down, the heavy dirt, the heavy foul matter, heavy soiled matter will be settling at the bottom. And then what will come on the surface is not moss. What will surface on the top is your pure samskars of previous lives. What you call in English as subliminal impressions. So in case of water, the moss will surface. But if you are in Satsanga, you don't collect moss at the top. Therefore, you don't say that after Satsanga, my surface mind is dirty. Surface mind is crystal clear. Surface mind is pure. Surface mind is transcendent. So by Satsanga, what happens that the lake of consciousness, lake of mind stuff settles down. Chitta settles down. All the dirt, whether light or heavy, goes down. All bad samskars go down. And then because the bad samskars go down, it's a kind of convection that the hidden pure samskars will surface on the top of the mind. Therefore, after satsanga, you feel sublime. So that is what the satsang does, that you have been existing for from time immemorial. So whatever good things you have done in all your past lives, they will only surface. Had I been Ravana in my previous life, had I been a demon in my previous life, that won't surface when I'm doing satsanga. Whatever I did as a noble person, noble deeds, virtuous deeds, they will only surface. So virtue surfaces by satsanga. And that's why we feel cosmetically we are virtuous people after satsanga. So suppose you say you are having satsanga with me, all the foul things you did in your previous lives and even this life go down. And then what comes to surface is that transparent mind, immaculate mind, virgin mind, pure mind called Shubha Samskars, called pure Samskars. So they get the chance to surface. In case of water body, moss gets chance to surface. Otherwise, moss is in the water, but you can't identify something as a moss. But when the water body steadies, that foul matter will surface. Otherwise, from where did it come? It came from water body. Not that it came from outside. The moss did not come from outside. Moss was inherently in the water. So when the water body settles, that which is diffused in the water, dirt matter, foul matter which is diffused in the water comes together and surfaces at the top. Therefore, we slowly, gently push the moss aside and try to take some water from under the moss. That is pure. While in satsanga, this is what happens. So all the good samskars of previous life will surface. We don't want ill samskars, bad samskars of the previous life to surface in any case. If I had been demon in my previous lives, I don't want those impressions to come on surface at all. How will you do it? You and me were evil persons in previous manifestations. Now, how will we prevent that to come to surface? In your worldly activities, they will surface. And that's why we say, after all, these are his samskar, these are his karma, therefore he behaved like this, therefore he did like this, because they surface. When we are Rajosanga, when we are Tamosanga, they surface, which comes in worldly life. But in Satsanga, what happens is only virtue collections will surface. Virtue deposits, virtuous deposits, meritorious deposits will surface on the mind. Dirt matter settles down. And that is why after good satsanga, we feel some transmutation, transfiguration. And therefore, if you want the sadhana realm to be touched, you are expected to do liberally satsanga. Otherwise, all the noble samskars will never be surfaced. Whereby you feel ennobled, you feel transcendent, you feel mundane, you feel etherealized. And therefore, satsanga is important. Consequently, you can also deduce how Shastra Sangha does that and Sadhana Sangha does that. So I don't have to go out for Satsanga necessarily. You have to come to me and listen to me for you to become experience of nobility. But in yoga, you go inwards yourself and you draw the virtuous samskars on the surface. That is Sadhana Sangha. And therefore, Satsanga, Shastra Sangha, Sadhana Sangha has been mentioned. Shastra Sangha should be Satsanga. Sadhana Sangha should be Satsanga. Satsanga is not only number one, it should be inherently in all other sadhanas. Then all the noble, meritorious pearls that we have collected will only surface. We have black stones also in our past storage of the past. They don't come up. They are there, they stay at the bottom. And therefore, this concept of Satsanga, Shastra Sangha, Sadhana Sangha is there in yoga. So I think with this note, we should conclude today's session.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
can delineate on it later.
Mhm.
Okay.
This has been very educational, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Okay. Thank you for listening to this episode of On the Light. Today, I would like to close with this passage from the Tree of Yoga. What is your state of mind when you are practicing yoga? For what purpose are you doing it? Is it to improve your presentation of yourself in order to be more attractive to people as you walk down the street? Or are you doing it to cultivate yourself from the body to the soul? If the latter thought is there, then it becomes spiritual. Sensuality and spirituality are like two sides of a coin. If you turn the coin one way, it is spiritual. The other way, it is sensual. It is a subjective matter. You do not require a certificate from an outsider to tell you whether your sadhana, your practice of yoga, is spiritual or sensual. Only the practitioner can test for himself or herself whether their practice is divine or non-divine, because the spiritual is subjective, as the core of the being is subjective. Outsiders cannot see the core of the being. They can only see the body and its manifestations. They cannot see the intuitive side. We need not be disturbed by the views of outsiders who look on our cover, the body, to try to tell us whether we are divine or non-divine. That is all for today. Thank you for listening. Namaskar.